Hello everyone and welcome to our second to last lesson. These are Sophia's study sessions. This is a 7-step guide to writing a MLA format 5-paragraph essay. This lesson in particular is about how to create a works cited and how to use in-text citations in your paper. What is a works cited, you might ask? A works cited is the list of sources labeled alphabetically at the end of your essay. A works cited is actually the last page of your essay, but something you have to take note of is that it's not included in your word or page count. So let's say your teacher asks you to write a 2-page essay. The works cited page is not included in your page count and won't count towards that count. A works cited page is always meant to be there regardless of how many pages you're required to actually write. Now, the important thing about works cited pages is that when you cite your sources, you can't cite them in any format. Like I've stated in just about all of our lessons, the type of essay that I'm teaching you how to write is an MLA format. And MLA format is the standard English essay format actually almost across the globe. This is to keep education consistent throughout many areas. So, for example, the essay that I might write in Miami is formatted in MLA the exact same way that someone in New York would write their MLA essay. Now, there's a very, very slight chance that you will ever have to learn how to cite your own sources. Like, when I say cite your own sources, I mean by hand. This is just an example of how your citation should look. This is really important because two of the most common formats that are used are APA and MLA. MLA is, of course, the English format, which is the one that you use in order to write your essays in your English classes. Whereas APA, which you might be taught in your more advanced science classes, but that all depends, is meant for statistical papers and scientific studies. And there have been times where people have actually cited their sources in APA and have gotten points off because they incorrectly cited them. So you have to make sure that when you put it into a website, I personally recommend from actually using from experience EasyBib and Citation Machine. These are two websites that are free to use and it's really easy to just put your website URL, which if you don't know what that stands for, that's essentially the link to your source right in there, and all you have to do is click cite it. However, it's good, again, because there are different ways to cite sources, you always want to keep in mind a general idea of how a source should look cited in MLA. For example, the other day I accidentally cited some of my sources in APA instead of MLA, and I was able to just discriminate visually the difference between an APA source and an MLA source because they do look different. You are going to be able to tell the difference between an APA and an MLA cited source just by looking at it. So here's a very basic example of a works cited of a source that is cited in MLA. Now, whenever you're creating your works cited page, you actually have to center works cited at the top of your page. It's the first thing that you do, and you write it just like this. I'm going to go over more about the format of how to write an MLA essay within my formatting video. Something that you have to remember when you're citing sources in MLA is that they have to be in alphabetical order based on last name. For the most part, when you put in your sources to, like, for example, EasyBib, if you continually use that website, it'll actually organize it alphabetically for you. So all you have to do is copy all at the end, and you can paste it right into your works cited page, which is generally the most recommended thing to do when creating a works cited. Something else that you should know when writing a works cited is that after this first line right here, you have to indent. And essentially what indenting is clicking your tab button, and just like how you would start a paragraph, and you do that after the first line to all the lines. Let's say there was another line of text here, you would still have to indent it. That's something important to remember, and it's great to build that habit. You may not be required to do that per se in your freshman English classes, but definitely in your junior English classes, it is a requirement. And you will be, and your teacher will take points off if you forget to do this. A few things to take note of when you're creating your citation is that you have to remember that you can't have an incomplete citation. If you cite something incompletely, you can and will get points off. And the most important thing about your works cited is that if you don't have a works cited, your paper is considered plagiarism. And what does that mean? Well, plagiarism is essentially cheating. That's when you're using somebody else's words, but you're not saying that you're using them. So the reason why you have a works cited is so that you can use somebody else's words, like, for example, evidence or somebody else's analysis to further your own point without plagiarism. This has happened to many people that they'll not include a works cited page and they will get a straight F on their paper. A teacher will not even bother to read a paper if it is plagiarized. And you might ask, how can a teacher tell if a paper is plagiarized? Well, for the most part, a very commonly used plagiarism checker is in fact turnitin.com. This is used by a lot of teachers in order to check plagiarism levels, and right before even looking at the essay, they know whether they should read it at all. This is something that's commonly used in high school, but especially in college. And even though college seems like a far away, long ways away from where you are right now, you do have to start building these habits now so that you can keep them up in college. All right. Arguably, the more important form of citation is an in-text citation. What is that, you might ask? Well, essentially, an in-text citation is a citation that is used within the actual information of your essays, especially within your body paragraphs. Even if you were to include your works cited and you forget your in-text citations, it will still be considered plagiarism. Because even though you might have said at the end, like, hey, I used this, if you don't use an in-text citation after a quote, the reader of your essay has the right to assume that you're stealing this person's work. Doing an in-text citation is very, very simple, and it's something that you don't even need EasyBib to do. However, there is the option available after creating your actual citations. You click this button that essentially has 3 little dots on it, and it will prompt you with, would you like to copy paste your in-text citation? However, if you want to just know by memory how to do an in-text citation, which is a skill that you build after a while of writing essays, because you do have to know how to create an in-text citation quickly, is that the last name of your author's last name, like for example, Smith, in parentheses with the page number of the article or book that you cited from. For example, let's say you're reading Romeo and Juliet for freshman year, which is a very commonly read William Shakespeare's poem, one of the most commonly known Shakespeare's poem that exists today. And you may want to take a quote from page 36. You have to quote parentheses Shakespeare 36 parentheses period. You have to put a period after your parentheses. Here's an example of how you would use an in-text citation. You have to use an in-text citation every time you mention your evidence. Even if you're not quoting, which you no matter what, you have to use your in-text citation after quoting something. Even if you're not quoting and you're just using evidence, it's not your own idea. Anytime that you're using something that is not your own idea, you must use a in-text citation. So here's a very simple example of that. This is the in-text citation from the source that we just saw in those previous pages. I'll skip right over there. See, John Smith, the definition of gate, right? So what I did here is that I'm citing the first page of the article or of the website. It's the first page. And I'm saying here that, look, this is this author's work. If you look at the first page, you'll be able to find this. I'm not stealing this. However, you do have to not learn how to not overly in-text, how to not overly use in-text citations. For example, if something is common sense, like dogs are canines, doors open, you drink from cups, even though it might seem silly, sometimes when you're very nervous, you may have a tendency to over-in-text citation, to overly cite things. All right, here's some things to remember from this lesson. Without citations, you will get an automatic F. No matter what class you take, it doesn't matter what school you go to, if your paper is plagiarized, you will immediately get an F. That's just a school, that is a education system-wide policy. You always have to tab the lines after the first one in your citation. Always remember to do this. This is a great skill to build while you're younger because it's difficult to build when you're in senior year. Your Wors Cited page is not included in your page count. If your teacher asks you to write a 2-page essay, you can't write a 1-page essay and then add your Wors Cited page and say, but miss, I did 2 pages. That doesn't work. It doesn't count. All right, everyone. Good luck. I hope that this lesson helps you write a Wors Cited page and to remember to use your in-text citation. I hope to see you all for your last lesson. I hope you guys have a nice day.